He didn't shout. He didn't insult. He didn't explain. He just went silent. How silence is used to emotionally control people, a psychological fact. He didn't shout. He didn't insult. He didn't explain. He just went silent. And somehow, that silence hurt more than any argument ever could. Psychology proves this. Silence is not the absence of communication. It is one of the most powerful tools of emotional control. Today, I'll tell you how silence controls people, why the human brain reacts painfully to it, and how it's been used in relationships, power dynamics, and even experiments without the victim realizing what's happening. Part 1. Why silence feels so painful. The science. Human brains are wired for connection. When someone suddenly stops responding, no messages, no reactions, no emotional feedback, the brain doesn't interpret it as peace. It interprets it as threat. Neuroscience studies show that social rejection activates the same brain regions as physical pain. The brain literally treats silence like injury. That's why being ignored can feel heavy in the chest, restless, anxious, obsessive. You're not weak. Your brain is reacting exactly as it was designed to, and manipulators know this. Part 2. The story, a realistic example. Let me tell you a simple story. A woman named Sarah was in a relationship with someone calm, polite, and emotionally controlled. Whenever they disagreed, she wanted to talk things out, but he never argued. Instead, he would go quiet. Not for minutes, for days. No calls, one-word replies, no emotion. At first, Sarah thought maybe he needs space, so she waited. But the silence didn't end. Slowly, something changed. She started replaying conversations in her head. She began apologizing for things she wasn't even sure were wrong. She became careful with her words, afraid of triggering silence again. Without realizing it, she was being trained, not through anger, not through threats, but through silence. Part 3. The psychological mechanism behind it. This tactic has a name in psychology: emotional withdrawal as control. Here's how it works. Silence creates uncertainty. Uncertainty creates anxiety. Anxiety makes people seek reassurance. The one who withholds reassurance gains power. In simple words, the person who needs answers loses power. The person who withholds them gains it. That's why silence is so effective. It forces the other person to chase clarity. Part 4. Why silence works better than anger. Anger gives information. Silence gives none. When someone yells, you know where you stand. When someone goes quiet, your mind fills the gap. And the mind always fills gaps with self-blame. Psychologists call this negative attribution bias, the tendency to assume you did something wrong when information is missing. That's why silence often leads to thoughts like, maybe I overreacted, maybe I said too much, maybe I'm the problem, and control is established, quietly. Part 5. The experiment that proved it. In controlled psychological studies, participants were ignored during group activities. No insults, no criticism, just silence. The result? Participants showed increased stress levels, lower self-esteem, strong desire to regain approval. Some even changed their opinions just to be accepted again. Silence didn't just hurt them, it reshaped their behavior. That's the scary part. Part 6. Silence in power dynamics. This isn't limited to relationships. Silence is used everywhere. Managers who ignore employees instead of giving feedback. Leaders who pause before responding to dominate rooms. Parents who withdraw affection to control behavior. In power psychology, silence signals dominance. The message is unspoken but clear. I decide when you matter. And the brain responds by trying harder to earn attention. Part 8. Why silent people seem powerful. Have you noticed this? The quiet person in the room often feels intimidating. That's because silence creates psychological pressure. People project meaning onto it: intelligence, authority, emotional control. In reality, silence isn't strength by default, but strategic silence feels powerful because it keeps others guessing, and guessing drains mental energy. Part 9. The dark turn, when silence becomes abuse. There's a line. Healthy silence means space for regulation. Manipulative silence means punishment. When silence is used to avoid accountability, punish emotions, force apologies, control behavior, it becomes emotional abuse, even without a single harsh word. The damage is quiet, but deep. Part 10. Why people get addicted to silence. Here's something disturbing. The cycle of affection, silence, relief, affection creates emotional addiction. The brain releases dopamine when silence ends, so people don't just tolerate it, they start chasing the relief. That's why some people stay in emotionally silent relationships for years. The real truth: silence doesn't always mean peace. Sometimes it means control. Sometimes it means avoidance. And sometimes it means someone knows exactly how much power they have over your emotions. The most dangerous control doesn't shout, it doesn't threaten, it waits. And by the time you realize what silence is doing to you, you've already started changing yourself to stop it. That's the real power of silence. Like, subscribe, and share. And if you guys want, I will make a video about how to get out from silence control. Just comment how.